The series continues. We're taking a look at tournaments over in Japan to prepare for EUIC. It's only a few weeks away now. We are going to do this every week up until the tournament, just to keep an eye on the format and what you guys can expect. Obviously not everyone has a testing group, has a chance to play. You can play online, but I mean, the quality of player can differ from game to game. So this is going to be a look at what you can expect in a metagame, decks to prepare for, maybe stuff that you need to tech into your decks or decks you even want to play if you've still not decided, me included. So let's take a look at the lists here. For some reason there was no tournaments on the weekend, but we have got some from midweek, so Wednesday and Monday. So we're going to take a look at the decks here. Control taking first place. I think this is going to be one of the most dominant decks in the format. I think Eri is probably the key it needed. Obviously you could hide stuff in your hand before. It was very hard for them to disrupt you, but now with stuff like Trimmer, which we don't actually see in this deck, but more importantly, Eri, you can target those things like rare candies, or even like an Ultra Ball if that's set out for turn. I've started playing Eri in my Charizard, and against other Charizards, against Chien-Pao, it can just win you games. Fairly standard list here. We've got the 2 Fire Energy and the Chi-Yu. No Radiant Zard, so that's slightly interesting, but it's a fairly standard list. Otherwise, coming in at second place, the former best deck in format, arguably anyway. I'd probably say God of War, but it's God of War or this. It's now coming in second place. Everyone thought this deck had fallen off, so if you're playing Giratina at the minute and you were like, I don't really want to play this into the new format, stick with it. Lost Zone is still in a good spot. Giratina doesn't go from best deck to worst deck. It's still there and thereabouts. It's had a massive resurgence recently. So yeah, it's one to be aware of for a few reasons. If you want to play it, it's still strong. If you're playing in the format, Sableye is obviously going to be around, so maybe that Jirachi sneaks back into your deck. We've got the Iron Leaves in there for the Charizard matchup and the Prime Catcher. So I prefer the Maximum Belt because you can Iron Leaves, but if you've got the Maximum Belt, you can just swing for a knockout. I don't think the V-Star is going to be as powerful with Mist Energy in the format. We don't see any Temple of Sinnoh, so there's no way around it. And I think Charizard should be your target when building a deck on what to beat. But yeah, fairly standard list otherwise. Let's take a look at third place then. I think we'll do like the top 4, maybe top 8 of the tournaments. Give you sort of the best decks that are winning. So Chien-Pao obviously very popular. I do like to see a 3-3 here. I like a third Baxcalibur or a fourth Rare Candy, depending on space. Just, that is your deck. If this isn't up and running, you're not winning matches. So yeah, I think it's really important. I like the 3-3 Bibarel as well. Obviously, you don't always want 3 down, but it's nice to have the options. Maybe you can be less reliant on your Super Rod so they can go into reusing your Chien-Pao, especially if you're only playing the 2. And we do see the Heavy Ball to find a Chien-Pao out and an Iron Hands. We have seen a 9 count of Water Energy, which I did like. But 8 I think is fine. That's probably the standard, honestly. And we do see the ones Codebreaker. No Iono in this list. Normally a 1-1 or 2 Ciphers. A Codebreaker. So many translations have messed up what this card is in my head now. Other than that, fairly standard list. Nothing special in here. I've said before, I'm not a fan of the Kyogre in this format. It's got a few uses, but if you're playing against Chien-Pao, you're probably benching Manaphy anyway, so I don't really see a massive use in it. And in at fourth place, we've got another Chien-Pao. So this is a slightly different version. We've got the 1-1 Palkia. We've got 3 Chien-Pao instead of the 2, which is pretty good. It's what I played in the old format, and like we said, the 9 Water Energy there. 2 Vessels are slightly more Vessel and able to search stuff out. However, less on the consistency side. The 2-2 Bibarel, we're losing a Baxcalibur, and we've got a 1-1 line in, so it's a little iffy. I can see a lot more going wrong with this deck. We even see the 1 Boss's Orders, which I don't really think you need. I guess if you're not playing Kyogre, it's nice to have 1. Or even, yeah, dropping the account of each of these as well, the Ultra Ball and Nest Ball. Yeah, I'd much prefer the third place list. That's probably why it's in third place. Take a quick look at the other decks in top 4. We're not going to linger on these. We've got Lugia with Maximum Belt and Flutter Mane, so that's becoming the norm in that deck. We see a Charizard, running Jirachi like we mentioned, the Prime Catcher build, anything standing out here. Defiance Band over... Oh, because they don't have Maximum Belt, so that makes sense. Defiance Band, Choice Belt is nice. Another Charizard here, Maximum Belt, Choice Belt, 7 Energy. This is much more what I would play. 2 Rotom though is... I mean, you never really need to. I think a Galarian Heavy Ball is probably better. You've obviously got the Arvins to search it out. but I think that's fine. The only other thing to note here would be 2 counter catcher and 3 boss, so 5 ways to gust. Yeah, they haven't got the prime catcher, so 5 ways. And another Charizard. So Charizard is still absolutely dominant over there. We still don't see the heavy ball slip into any lists. I think, especially with running Flutter Mane and... Okay, they're focusing on the 2 Rotums, but I think heavy ball's just better. It helps you find Pidgey. You can find your Charmanders if you prized a couple. It lets you grab Manaphy or Giratina if you need them in certain matchups. So there's a lot more uses for heavy ball. I don't really like the 2 Rotom. It just increases your odds on it starting in the active. Then we've got Giratina, Arceus with a Vulpix Tech and another Giratina Lost Box. So Giratina is still sticking around. Like I say, if you are playing it now and you don't really want to change decks, don't. Honestly, it's still in a good spot. What we got here? We've got Lost Box. I think this is a fairly standard list. This is going to be Lost Box going into the new format. We've got the Crisis Punch, the 2 Cramorant, which I think's, yeah, probably essential. I do like a town store in here as well to be able to find some of these tools. Obviously, you've got the Rescue Board and the Crisis Punch. So it just helps you find stuff when you need them. Other than that, though, fairly standard list. Second place, we've got Lugia. So it's nice to see Lugia still putting in some work. This is a deck I was heavy on. I don't know, it's tough. I think it's going to be dependent on how popular Iron Hands here is in EUIC. And I do think it's going to be quite popular, so I'm not really confident playing Lugia now. Lugia just can't beat that deck, so I honestly do think it's like a 90-10 or an 80-20, something, maybe even, I don't know, you just don't beat that deck. Fairly standard list though, nothing strange in there. Having a look in here then, so we do see the 2 Code Breakers. We even see a Flutter Mane sneak in. I really like Ditto in this list, obviously able to switch into the Chien-Pao, then go grab some energy. I'm not even sure what this Pokemon is. Is this the one that searches for basic? Someone let me know what that Pokemon is in the comments. It's such a nice art, but I can't tell. It looks like Staryu, but it's probably not. Other than that though, absolutely standard 60. Again, Chien-Pao, absolutely everywhere. I will say, power-wise, I think this is the most powerful deck in format. What lets it down is its consistency. I've had so many games where I just don't set up with it or I can't get stuff going. Obviously, there are ways to help. You can thin your deck. It's how you play certain cards and sequencing and stuff. But sometimes you just can't get there. This deck feels very clunky. I think, I don't know. It's so powerful. I think the more it leans on power, though, the more you lose consistency. You can't be hyper consistent and hyper powerful. It's like we've seen like Giratina in this current format. It's very powerful, but Giratina hands is a thing. Not iron hands, just dead hands. No cards in hand that you can play. It's a thing. Obviously, the more you put into being a powerful deck, the less you have that consistent side. And I think Chien-Pao is a front runner for that. It's not a deck I would play just for that reason, but I do think the thing is, at a tournament like EUIC, if you're going to go on and win or go on to day 2 or go on and make a run, you need luck on your side. You can't just be good. You do need that luck as well. Now, you can put yourself in positions to not need as much luck, and you can play well enough that the luck might not matter as much, but you do need some of it on your side. So maybe playing a deck like this, a high roll deck, and just going for it is the shout. Like I said, if it goes off, I think it beats anything in the format, honestly. It's one of the most powerful decks, and I'm interested to see how it does at EUIC. And yet another one. This is what I mean. Literally all just Chien-Pao decks here. And we do see a Giratina. Fairly standard again. Let's see if there's any different decks in top 8. And no, it's just more Chien-Pao and a Charizard. This Charizard is leaning on the Judge combo, though. Not something we've seen. I'm not sure how much I like that. I guess with Pidgeot, you can just find the card you need. I don't hate it. I think maybe going into more Iono makes more sense, and then you've got the Roxanne for late game. The next tournament, then, we have got the Firebox with Arceus. So we've got the Delphox V, we've got Armarouge, just to move the energy around. You've got the Mew to attack with. You can even, with the Luminous, you can attack with Iron Hands. Obviously, a consistent 4-4 line of Arceus. We've got the Charizard, we've got Magma Basin. So many ways to set up your Pokemon. So many modifiers with both belts. We've got Cobalion to help you reach the Charizards. This is a deck built for the format. I don't think this is going to work into something like EUIC, where you're not really sure what the format is. This deck is very, very much customized to what they're playing against. So, very interesting deck. It's a deck we've seen similar in this format with Rayquaza and things, and we've even seen a Firebox itself. I do think it's really interesting. It's just not a deck I've had enough time to put time into, so it's not a deck I'm going to be looking at playing, but it might be for you. So there's the list if you do want to check it out. Save it down, hunt down those cards. I do think you can just build Charizard into a Firebox, which is probably what we're seeing here. We see the Entei and Delphox come in. 8 energy, obviously having to Lost Zone some. We've got the Jet energy as well. Prime Catcher, so it's a very mobile list. It is the Bibarel version, so obviously you need that extra mobility with no free retreat on the Pidgeot, but also no way to find cards when you need them. I do think in this version, I just prefer the 4 Candy. Leaning on the Evo TM has proved difficult at times. Obviously, you need ways to find energy as well. So I've seen stuff like Energy Search in decks. Running 8 energy, you're probably fine though. 9 energy, so you're probably fine. Like in a normal Charizard list, you have like 6, and it doesn't make as much sense. But other than that, fairly standard. We do see Magma Basin come in for those quick attacks with Delphox and Entei. Very interesting there. And at 3rd place, we've got Lugia. Pretty standard list. Decks are sort of standardizing now. We do see Maximum Belt and Vitality Band in there. This helps them reach into stuff like Iron Hand, so it could potentially make that matchup more winnable. We do see the Lost Vacuum, remove their baton. So this is very much going all in against that deck. I do think if Lugia sets up against other decks, it's probably going to win. It beats Charizard. It's close against Chien-Pao. So I think if you strengthen that Iron Hands matchup with some of these cards, with the Arvens to find them out, most importantly, you need to be able to find them when you need them. So having those Arvens in there is nice. It's an interesting list. Hopefully it doesn't take away too much consistency and setup. Just having a look, I don't think it really loses that much, honestly. You've still got all your Ultra Balls. You've got Jacq. You've got your other search cards. Losing Master Ball might hurt. There's only Serena and a research in there, so it might be very difficult to get rid of those Archeops when you need to, but it's one to test out. Obviously taking 2nd place is pretty good. And then we do see a mill deck. I'm so glad we've seen this. This is a deck I'm going to be playing to like cups and challenges. It's a fun deck. It's control how control should be played. This is how I would play it if I was playing a tournament. I wouldn't play Snorlax. There's not enough interaction there for me. At least we're doing some things and flipping some cards and seeing what you get to discard. It's interesting. I like this deck. I like Great Tusk as a Pokemon. So it's definitely going to be a deck I try out. It's one I've got built, so yeah, very excited. I will be doing some stuff about this on the channel soon, so make sure you're subscribed if you want to see that. Quick flick through the top 8 here then. So we do actually see a Raging Bolt, which we haven't seen yet. So here's a list there if you want to copy down Raging Bolt. Probably a good starting point, honestly. I think the Koraidon's nice. Maybe even a 2nd Koraidon. Sliverwing for the one-shot into Iron Hands is nice. And then, yeah, just a fairly standard Raging Bolt list. Then we've got Lost Giratina. We've got a Lugia with Weird Ear. I'm not sure if I really like that as a finisher anymore. Just another Giratina, another Lugia. So Giratina and Lugia still knocking about, still around. You did see a Goldengo in, I think that was like 10th spot. Just looking at another tournament here, we've got Snorlax in 1st place once again. Obviously, controlling to Charizard is such a powerful matchup, and it is enough to win. Look, you can see here, the top 8 is 3 other Charizards, so just having a good matchup into that, I think, is the best thing and most important thing you can do going into EUIC, honestly. Just trying to see if there's anything out of the ordinary here. We've got Giratina, Arceus. Oh, so we do see an Ancient Box. This is a deck I was very excited for to start with. It's one we've refined a ton. We did see the Cyclizar appearing in lists over in Japan, so that is one we put into ours. Or tried it out at least. We do have a rescue board in, just because it's a pivot for both of these Pokemon, more importantly. Pokemon that we want in play. Just having to search out this extra Pokemon can be really difficult. We do run the 1 Artisan to help with that. And I think you definitely want the 4th Nest Ball, no question. One of the biggest weaknesses of this deck is getting your Pokemon out. So I would say Artisan in, an extra Nest Ball in, rescue board in, and then you can remove some other bits. It's actually a powerful deck. The problem with this deck is when people are playing it, when I'm playing it, when anyone's playing it, it doesn't feel powerful. It doesn't feel like you're winning. But the fact that you're a single price deck and you can just slowly swing in for 100, 150, just ramping up slowly. Take those 3-hit knockouts on the first Charizard or whatever you're playing against. Let's say Charizard, for example. If you 2-shot the next one, they've taken 5 prizes, and then you can just Roar and Moon EX for the last 2 prizes. So you really can just win races, even though it feels very slow to start with. You do get back into those games and you can just win them. The Roaring Moon EX to finish things off is the icing on the cake, honestly. I think you only want 2 though. You don't really want to start these things. You don't want them down earlier than you need to. It's just such a fun deck to play. If I decide I kind of want to take EUIC seriously and really just like try and make a run. It is my first internationals. I'm very excited to play. I've been playing for so long though. I've been playing between 10 and 15 years at this point. So I know the game very well. I've always followed the competitive scene. So I have an idea. I know how to play. So yeah, I kind of want to take a strong deck and give it a run, but I'm very tempted just to take Ancient Box. It is just so much fun to play. Nothing else really out of the ordinary in that tournament. Let's take a look at one more then. What is this monstrosity? Lost Raging Bolt. What do you gain though? You're only really, I guess you get the Cram and the Sableye. I guess the only way you're accelerating energy here is Mirage Gate. It doesn't seem powerful enough for Raging Bolt to really hit those numbers. Oh, you've got Professor Sada in here as well. Actually, that's kind of nice. I don't hate that. Obviously, you've got more ancient Pokemon, so you can accelerate to those to power up Raging Bolt as well. Then you can Mirage Gate. Okay, I've turned around. Actually, this deck's clever. I really like this deck. That's a really unique concept. The only issue here is, I guess you're soldering later on, but you really want to play Colress early. So yeah, it's kind of awkward. I guess you're only trying to get to 7 really, and then you don't really rush for the Sableye. Honestly, I wouldn't even mind the Sableye coming out. Just focusing on hitting 7, and then just go all into Sardas and swing with your Raging Bolts. I guess it depends what you're playing against. This is a really clever list. I'm glad we've seen this. Yeah, that's really interesting. Very clever. It's nice seeing different lists. Let's see what else we've got here. Speaking of different, we have got the Noivern reappearing in Lugia, obviously to help that Iron Hands matchup. Other than that, very consistent, very heavy on like Master Ball and Search. We do see the Salvatore to potentially turn 1 the Noivern into play, so Iron Hands can't get tricky. Fairly standard Bibarel list. We do see Maximum Belt, you normally see Prime Catcher, so slightly different there. We do see a Serena as well. This is a deck I've played against online, and sometimes it just, well, I would say like 75, 80% of the time it does nothing. But when it sets up, it is an absolute monster, honestly. It can be very hard to deal with. So if they've cracked the list, maybe if Poffin's slightly more helpful, obviously not missing those VIPs turn 1, that might be the key. It's always going to be an interesting list. It's one I'd like to see more of. It's not one I want to play against because, like I said, if it does what it needs to, it can be very difficult to play into. Other than that, though, we've got yet another Charizard. Nothing really standing out here. The one-off area, which I mentioned before. This is actually very similar to my list. There's a few different counts of things and a few different cards. I'm not going to go fully in. I will talk about my list as like sort of a vlog or video around EUIC anyway. I don't really know if I'm going to have time to vlog, but I will do a recap at some point. I like the Spiritomb in Chien-Pao. I have been thinking about playing a Spiritomb in Charizard, so Spiritomb instead of Rotom, Lumineon, and the Forest Seal Stone, and going slightly more into control. So you play the Spiritomb to shut off other Charizards, Rotoms, other Pokemon like Lumineon. You can still play the Delphox and one of Forest Seal Stone if you want, obviously not needing an ability with Delphox. And then you play stuff like Airy, Grabber, and just mess up their hand early on, disrupt them as much as possible. A lot of the time with Charizard, because you have so many outs, so many cards, you can find so many things with Pidgeot, you can afford to take turns to play those control cards, which is what I've been enjoying doing with my deck. And yeah, it's definitely going to be what I focus on going into EUIC, I think. Yeah, again, very standard list, very similar to what I've been playing. Let's see if we've got anything different here. So it's another Lost Box Raging Bolt, but this has gone heavy into Raging Bolt. Yeah, so this is what I was talking about. Just focus on hitting 7. I'd probably still go 4 Colress just so you've got a chance to hit it. You do have the 2 Poké Gear, so you're probably fine. I really like this deck. This might be a deck. I don't know if there's enough time to test this, though. I might give it a go. I have got a Lost Zone Goodra built from last week, so if you haven't seen that, go back and check it. Like I said, we will be doing next week's as well. So if you do want to see more of this stuff, if it's helping you to see decks, test decks, just have some idea of what to play against or what to expect in the game at EUIC. Make sure you are subscribed. If you've made it to this point in the video, thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you in the next one.